Hi guys, and welcome back to a special episode where we're gonna find out the truth behind Edu. And is he as good as everyone makes him out to be? Or are Arsenal gonna be better off without him? And we got none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Dan Potts from 12th Man and AFTV over to give us his side of the story. Make sure you go and subscribe to the channel. I know a lot of you are already. The link's in the title. And Dan, it's good to have you on, buddy. How are you?
Oh, big up to you, man. Absolute pleasure, mate. It's been great to come on and chat to you, mate. And I must say, I'm a fan of your football club. I'm a fan of your fan base and your stadium. But at the moment, it's looking like you might finish above us, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? So let's see if
We're in a
that carries
title
on.
race, mate.
Yeah,
We're in a
mate.
title race. Technically speaking, I predicted us to finish 8th at the start of the season, and I was
Wow.
getting pelters from
Wow.
our own fan base. Our own fan
Wow.
base as well.
Listen,
Now
love
I'm
the
thinking,
optimism, man.
yeah. Now I'm thinking maybe I went too low. But yeah. So we've overtaken you after we beat West Ham. By the way, West Ham, mate, what a joke they are, man. I've
Shambles.
been on Lawless and Nicky's case, man.
Bro, I tried to tell Lawless this, man. But you know what it's like with Lawless. I tried to
Didn't
say,
he
look,
say top
boys,
4 at the start of the season? I
oh,
swear
this
he said
guy.
Champions League.
This guy, man. He said he'd be. Reckons he said fifth, but a lot of people said apparently they've heard him say fourth. But
I heard fourth.
this guy's mad. He is
Yeah.
I love him to pieces, but he is so deluded about West Ham. He really believes they're like going to go to sack Moyes and go to this next level with Lopetegui. I mean, let's just be real. It's not going to happen, is it?
Exactly, and we schooled him. But we overtook you after that match, and then to rub salt in the wound, mate, Marinakis, who's been hunting down Edu since I think it was like August time. We saw those early reports there. He's got his man now. And I just really want to get the perspective from an Arsenal fan. And the reason I wanted you is I know you're objective about these things. I know there's a bit of emotion when I've spoken to my Arsenal mates and what have you. So can you just start by telling us what Edu was doing at Arsenal and what was his role and his kind of responsibilities?
Yeah, man, he's actually been there longer than you think because he kind of joined in the Unai Emery era where we had Raul Sanllehi still at the club, and we were brought in by him. Obviously, he was an ex-player at the club and a very good one, by the way. A lot of people forget what Edu did, and Invincible at Arsenal was phenomenal when we brought him in 2002. He won the double, went Invincible 2004, won the FA Cup 2005. And when he left, a lot of Arsenal fans genuinely were quite sad because he'd done quite a lot at the club. So when he was being brought back or rumoured to be brought back as our kind of sporting director, or whatever word you want to call it, technical director, sporting director, whatever you want to call it now, both call it the same thing, really. A lot of people were quite happy because he had a genuine understanding of what it was like to wear the shirt and what it was like to be successful wearing the shirt. So that for me was really kind of key. When he came in straight away, I thought, well, the first thing I want to say is he hasn't got any experience really, because he was over at Brazil at Corinthians, and there where he actually played and was fairly successful with, but he hadn't really pulled up any trees in his career as yet because he was quite new. So he was coming into the club knowing about the club, but not particularly being an expert in his field at the job yet because he was just starting it. And I just felt like that's not what we need when we've already got quite a lot of lack of experience at Arsenal already. We've got ownership that don't really know how to get us across the line in this sport. We've got a manager that hasn't managed before, and we've got a technical director who hasn't really done much technical directing before. So all of a sudden I was a bit like, where are we going here? And that was why I had my doubts in the process or this regime right early on. Look, he's done some really good things and some really bad things, but his actual job was to look at the negotiations of players, trying to bring them into the club and trying to look at player sales, but also look at the kind of removal of some of the toxicity that we'd had at the club left over by Unai Emery, and tried to kind of bring in a different culture. And to be fair, he did that with Mikel Arteta. He got us challenging again, and that was his role. So you could say it's been successful for what he was asked to do. Has he been a success at Arsenal? Well, we haven't lifted anything, so probably not, right? But when you look at it in terms of what he was asked to do, he's done the best that he can do. So that is what his role was at Arsenal, was to look at not just player sales, but trying to remove some of the culture, try and look at ways in which with the players they've got there, how is the surrounding of the place, what are the new things needed, how he's going to work closely to be the right-hand man to the manager, and be on the same page of the manager, support the manager in the players that they select and where they want to go in the terms of how they want to play on the field. So Edu was definitely looked at as a huge responsibility for what Arsenal did well and what Arsenal at times didn't do well, that's for sure.
Yeah. Was he around? I'm trying to remember at the time where all those protests were going on about the
Yeah.
Cronkiers. Was he still in charge there?
Yeah, he was, and the European Super League was a huge thing that came in, and
Yeah.
a lot of people were very much against that and understand why. And I was one of them, and we were at the protest,
Mm,
and Edu was still massively right in the mix of that, And I think when Raul Sanlehi and Kia Jarapkin were involved, Edu was massively a part of that because some of the signings that we got that were not so great were actually to do with Edu, and some of the players like David Luiz and Danny Ceballos again on loan, Willian being
mm,
brought in. Edu was massive for that. Now you can say good things as well because he's brought in players like Martinelli for 6 million, who, to be fair,
yeah.
although hasn't been of great of late, if we were to sell him now, we're going to get more than 6 million. So there has been some good
Mm.
players that he's brought in. So he's got the experience now for being a technical director. The problem with Edu at Arsenal was, and we'll get into it more, is he wanted to go to that next level, and there just wasn't going to be that room for him to do that at Arsenal.
Yeah, well, let's cover that off because the rumors are that Arsenal still wanted to keep him, but I believe he wanted more power and more say in what was going on. From what you're hearing, is that about right on where this kind of breakdown, if you like, for want of a better phrase, started to happen?
So there was a lot that changed at Arsenal when the Cronkies took total ownership. Raul
Mm,
Sanlehi left along with Hus Fahmy, who did all the transfer negotiations at the time, and it was replaced by Josh Kroenke, who said, "Look, this is now my project. Silent Stan
yeah,
Kroenke. We don't hear from him, right? He's over in America all the time dealing with his
yeah,
other business." So Josh Kroenke has really taken a hold of Arsenal since the total ownership, and he started to put things in place. Tim Lewis has come in, and he's basically looking at how things run from the top alongside the Cronkies. And then we brought in Richard Garlick from, I believe it was previous with Premier League and West Brom. And Richard Garlick started to help Edu with transfer negotiations. We had Vinay Venkatesham, who was our CEO, and he then resigned. And Edu wanted that role, but the Cronkies didn't offer it to him. They gave it to Richard Garlick. So Edu
mm.
was always a little bit hurt by that, I feel, and always felt that that was his kind of next progression level was to get
How long
a
ago
bit
was that,
more
mate?
power. So that would have been last year.
Okay.
And Edu stayed as he was as sporting director. They wanted him with Arteta to look at the players in and players out. They didn't feel that if they took that away from him, then he'd have to do other roles of the CEO. He might not be concentrated on what they wanted him to be concentrated on, right? So Richard Garlick had had more experience in that role in terms of the overseer of a football club. They just felt that he was perfect for the job ahead of Edu. And I always felt at the time that was a bit kind of harsh on Edu potentially. I mean, I'm not saying he deserved that role, but
Mm.
certainly he felt that he'd been there longer than Garlick. Garlick had been swooped in and taken over, and maybe that has kind of hurt him a little bit. And then Edu's kind of role now, or has been, um, to try and look at progression routes. And clearly he's been looking elsewhere. Now, it is a bit of a frustrating one as far as some of the Arsenal fan base are concerned. I actually won't miss Edu because I'm not too bothered by him going. But a lot of the Arsenal fans are saying that it was a real frustrating thing because it was a process that he needed to stay and see through. He
Mm.
believed in it, and now he's jumping ship before anything's been won. So I can understand that. But that is now kind of where he was at, was they've got a reshuffle. There's been roles that have changed and new people that have come in, and he's kind of stayed put from where he is, thinking, did I deserve that? Is there growth here? Is there a progression route for me? The answer is clearly no. He's stuck in that sporting director role, and clearly he wants more than that.
In your opinion, had he reached his ceiling at Arsenal? Would that be fair to say? I know you're not going to say it with salt or anything, but kind of from
No.
your objective look at it, would you kind of tag it as that?
I think he could have continued to do as he was doing. I just don't know that Edu had the ability to take us to that next level. And I'm kind of looking at
Mm,
opportunities and potential replacements at the moment. And I'm hearing stuff from the guy at Bologna. I can't even say his name. I'm sorry.
yeah.
And there's another guy from Bayern Munich that he was at Marby. I think it was Nep, Marco Nep. And I'm looking at those kind of people, thinking that would excite me more than somebody who's played for the club. We just bring Bergkamp in, or Per Mertesacker gets promoted. I
Yeah.
don't want that. I want someone who knows what they're doing with a bit of experience. So I don't think Edu could have taken us to that level. Look, Wolfie, I've got to be real. He's brought in some good players. He's brought in some bad players, right? He has. And when I look at the players that he's brought in, a lot of people think what a great job Edu's done. What they don't do and they forget about is the players like Runnison in goal that he brought in, Matt Turner that he brought in that you know about.
Oh God. Oh God.
Matt Ryan was brought in, Sammy Lokonga was brought in, and Nun Savage, another one you know about, who was definitely
Mm,
brought into the club. Fabio Vieira for 40 million euros. Crazy. He's gone back to Porto on loan. Nicolas Pepe, 72 million pounds. He was bought in by Edu. Willian bought in by Edu. Pablo Mari, Cedric. That's 10 players I've rolled off the tongue that didn't do anything at the club. But you can look at Ben White, you can look at Erdegaard, you can look at Declan Rice, you can certainly look at Gabriel, you can look at William Saliba.
Partey, was that under him?
Thomas Partey.
Oh, he's good, wasn't it?
So yeah, I mean, look, what I'll say about those signings that were good, and this sounds really negative now, but it's not supposed to be. Erdegaard was actually easy to do back then because he wasn't wanted by Real Madrid. No one else wanted him. He got him on loan, and then still nobody wanted him. Thomas Partey was a £45 million release clause, so he just released that contract and he came. Ben White was 50 million from Brighton, so it wasn't like we bought him from Real Madrid. We bought Aaron Ramsdale and Tommy Tomiyasu, which at the time people thought, well, what are we doing that for? They've gone on to be okay at Arsenal, but not outstanding. Ramsdale's now no longer playing for us, of course. So there has been some good players. Of course there has. Kai Havertz, Declan Rice, I think is probably the one that he needs to take most credit for because negotiation-wise, he definitely managed to convince
you had Man City hard up against you on that one.
Exactly, right? So he deserves a lot of credit for that one. So I suppose when you look at anybody's career, there's going to be highs and lows. There's certainly been some highs with Edu. There's certainly been some lows. And I also think there's been that kind of question mark about where is that next step of ambition from Edu? Like, when is he going to go and get that Isak signing for us that we're all crying out for? When's he going to go and bring that cover for Saka in, that cover for Erdegaard, that when them two players are out, as we've seen this season, we struggle with? Where's the kind of Florian Wirtz type signing or something that all Arsenal fans are crying out for at the next level? And I think that we were told by Edu that we'd be really happy at the end of this window and Raheem Sterling come in and nobody was happy. We were told by Edu that we're going to sprinkle this current crop of young players with stardust, with gold dust. And so far, there's been Declan Rice and nobody else. So there has been some kind of question marks over some of his quotes and statements that he's made about where has that come from. And I think there's a genuine misunderstanding or confusion about who is actually solely to blame for that. I mean, did Edu have that ambition to be that? And there was a stumbling block somewhere. There was someone blocking it saying, we can't, mate. We got the money. Was that the Cronkies? Was it Arteta saying, actually, I don't want him, mate. I know you do, but I don't. So there's still that confusion about where that goes. And I suppose you won't quite know that until he goes to Forest and starts to either blossom or starts to have the same stumbling blocks. So, look, if he goes there and starts to have the stumbling blocks, you'll know it's him. If you go there and he flourished, you'll know, actually, it was someone else at Arsenal that was stopping that. So that'll be really interesting for me to see.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective as an outsider looking in at Arsenal, slightly influenced by my son, of course, I've always been amazed that he hasn't gone for that striker. Because I was looking this summer thinking Tony's sitting there. I know you've talked plenty about it over the summer, a couple of others as well. And it just seems, and I've heard some Arsenal fans label him as anti-striker. I mean, is that a fair criticism of him, do you feel?
I think Arteta and Edu together, either both of them or one of them does not want a striker at Arsenal. Or sees, sees Kai Havertz as the bloke like they want. Which is strange for me because in the 5 years that he's been here and the 6 or 7 that Edu's been here now, the only attackers we brought in at Arsenal are Willian, Trossard, Sterling, Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz. Well, Willian was brought in as a stopgap. Sterling's been brought in as a stopgap. Jesus isn't a number 9 and he's now playing on the wing.
Yeah.
Kai Havertz was brought in as an attacking 8//10 and he's now our number 9. And Trossard's probably been the only one you can say has actually come in and definitely hit the ground running and be a great super sub, but he's not really a 9 either. So we haven't still really bought a number 9 striker since Aubameyang went back in 2021, I think it was, 2022.
Yeah.
So I look at that now.
And that was a termination, wasn't it, Dan?
Exactly.
Which was surprising because he went to Barca, didn't he? And then they ended up selling him for money. So you could, again, chuck some criticism about that deal. So he just terminated the contract.
If I'm honest. Severe, I don't know what to say, really. Disappointment, I suppose. I mean, look, Aubameyang, the situation with Aubameyang and Arteta is completely separate to this. But if you're going to get rid of him, then we ended up actually paying Barcelona £7 million or something, so they didn't have to get them all right. We actually had to lose in money from Aubameyang as well as selling him on a free due to his wages that he was on. Barcelona were like, look, we want him, but we're not paying his wages. So they're like, look, we'll pay it for you. Just get him gone because he's been toxic to us. And then Chelsea ended up signing him for £12 million literally a few months later or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was poor, really poor. And I look at Aubameyang and I think, as much as there was toxicity there, no one's replaced the goals that he scored. You know, he was a
Mm.
30 goal a season striker. 20 of those were usually coming in the Premier League. So we haven't managed to replace him. And I don't know if that's Arteta and Edu together, or if it was Edu saying no. But I'm hearing my end that it's Arteta who doesn't really want a straight out and out focal point like a Haaland, because he wants that false nine to get involved and
Yeah.
link up for the Sakas and Martinellis of this world. He'd rather have a Bobby Firmino than a Haaland, Arteta, from what I can work out.
Yeah. And the other one I think about is Ben White, because if I remember rightly, he came in as a centre back,
Yeah.
didn't he? And it wasn't until, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to remember it back here, but Saliba came back in, kind of forced him out the team off his loan, and he almost got shoehorned into, we got a spare space at right back, and he has developed and been very good there. But initially, he was a centre back, wasn't he, when he came?
He was. He played alongside Gabriel. He was £50 million,
Mm.
and I've got to be honest. In his first season, I wasn't convinced with him at centre back. I thought he was an
Ben
okay
Shite, they
player.
were calling him, weren't they? Yeah.
And you know what? The first few performances, you could tell why, because he was shy.
Yeah.
Trust me, he couldn't win a header in the air. He was actually fairly comfortable on the football, but defending as a centre half was a problem for him in parts. And alongside Gabriel, he definitely had. It's harsh, but Gabriel got better when Ben White went to right back. So I don't know if you make
Yeah.
of that what you will. Saliba, we were crying out for. I don't know why he stayed over in
Yeah.
France so long, if I'm honest with you. I know he was young, but he was better than Holding, Chambers, Mustafi,
Oh, bloody
Luiz,
hell, hold.
Socrates, all these guys we had at the time. And I'm thinking, why have we got Saliba out there balling out, getting team of the year? What is going on? Look, it worked in the end because he came alongside Gabriel and formed a phenomenal partnership, which is a formidable one still today. Ben White, to be fair, he did play right back in a couple of games the previous season before, and I didn't think he played very well there. And I thought, God, mate,
Mm.
this guy let's just not play him. He's just clearly not good enough.
Yeah.
And when he started him there, I thought, yeah, all right then, Ben, let's see what you like here. Bloody hell, you're pretty good actually, and he has been good.
Yeah.
So that's been fair play. But Mikel Arteta has done that a few times already with players now, and I think that it makes me laugh with Arteta and Edu's vision of where they select players and how much of it has been this ain't worked, let's find a new position, and how much of it has been, well, we know he's this player now, but we see him in this position. Because Arsene
Yeah.
Wenger did that with Lauren. He was a right winger and he changed him into a
Oh,
right back,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Kolo Toure was a centre forward. He put him at centre back. He was phenomenal, right? So there's players that are managers that have done it before. But I just, at the moment, I can't see what's going on with Arsenal with our vision of our best 11 at the moment. And I know we've got injuries, but we've bought in, other than we've got our best right back, or one of our best right backs in Timber playing left back at the moment. We've got
Mm.
our centre back we bought for 50 million from Brighton now playing right back. We've had our number 6 in Party playing right back for the last few games. We've got our number 6 in Declan Rice playing at number 8. Marino's been brought in for the box to box, now playing number 10 because Erdegaard's out. Trossard's our winger playing in the number 10 and the false 9. And Havertz was brought in as an attacking 8/10, and he's now up top at the number 9. I'm like, this is mad. I don't know what's going on here. Like, this is absolute craziness for me. So I need to see when everyone's fit what this first 11 looks like. But there has been confusion in the last couple of years about where Arteta is going with his vision on some of the positions of these players. So yeah, that one is more on Arteta than Edu. But it's interesting they're so far in this together. And one thing we hear quite a lot, Wolfie, from the regime is we're all in this together. It's all about we.
Mm.
It's all about Edu and Arteta together. The Kroenke supporting it. Tim Lewis, Richard Garlick, all involved heavily.
Yeah.
Vinay when he was here from the outset. So I think that's something that Edu definitely would want. And I think with Marinakis wanting him for that long, he's definitely feels there's similarities there in terms of how much support he'd be offered there. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I guess my question, bringing it to Forest now, because it won't just be Forest he's covering, it'll be Olympiacos, a team in Portugal, and apparently a fourth club, which we think is going to be in Brazil now as well. So it's going to be quite varied. Like he did though, if we're looking at his positives, he did bring a bit of unity, didn't he? To Arsenal in terms of, I know Aubameyang, the deal sounded silly in itself, but ignoring the monetary side of it, there was that unity, especially in the first season when we came back up and you guys were almost running away with the title at one stage. Everything seemed to be on point and song. Would you give him any credit for building that foundation?
So the biggest praise I've given Edu and Arteta together collectively has actually been away from the pitch, which sounds mad,
Mm.
really, doesn't it? Because obviously their job is to try and get us. Well, Arteta's job is definitely
Yeah.
is trying to get us playing on the pitch. But in terms of the togetherness, the around the place, removal of toxic players, toxicity from everybody around the place,
Yeah,
winning mentality, attitude, togetherness, they've been superb. I've got to say that. The Emirates is rocking most of the time. It's been a
mm,
phenomenal place to be in the last couple of years because we've been winning games, and when you win games, it cures all. The place is rocking, right? Um, there's definitely been a togetherness from the players, everybody that's there. Edu and Arteta have brought in, and they use this kind of non-negotiables. And if you're on the boat, you're on the boat. If you're not, you're off it
yeah,
type attitude, and you can feel that. And there's definitely been more of a telepathy and a togetherness from the fan base, the players, the coaching staff, and from everybody within. There's only really the ownership that the fans don't see, to be fair. Edu,
yeah,
went walking down the North Bank. He's been walking down the North Bridge and the South Bridge, talking to fans when he, needed to be. He's been really good in LA when we've been over in America. We're talking to some of the guys that went over there for pre-season. He was talking to the fans and getting an understanding about that. So he definitely respects fans and he wants to understand what the the fan viewpoint is. He definitely has togetherness in him, and he definitely has the kind of supportiveness on both sides. So he'll support if he's feeling supported, from what we can make out at Arsenal. So
yeah.
there's some positives for sure, man. 100%.
That's good. Well, this is why I wanted you on, Dan, because I did want an objective overview of him. Because, it's, if we're honest, let's be honest, we only care about what happens on the pitch. As long
Of
as
course.
results are going well on the pitch, who cares who's behind the scenes? But it is important as well because that sets the foundation. And I think we may have been getting carried away. So, we've overtaken Arsenal. Now we're nicking their sporting director and everything. But I thought it was really important for us as Forest fans to get someone like you who's going to give me an objective opinion on it all, mate. So I really appreciate it. It's been fascinating. It's got me a little worried as well, mate. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
There's a
look, I
couple
would.
of
Do
things
you
in
know
there.
what? I would say this. I wouldn't be worried. I would give it. I would give it time for you to judge. And I'm not talking about give it
Yeah.
5 years. I'm talking about give it a few months and see what you
Mm,
actually believe is happening here, because it might work out fantastically well. Look, I don't know enough about Marinakis. I'm not a particular fan of some of the stuff he's done. I will say that. However, I do think that there's genuine ambition with him, and I think he
yeah.
genuinely wants Forest to be competing at the top. And that's all you can ask in an ownership. I don't like some of the personal stuff, but that's aside from football. To be fair. I feel
Yeah.
when you look at what he's trying to do at Forest, I get it. And I was actually one who was. It looked a bit mad when he was like okaying 35 players to come in the club in the first year, but you could see there was a genuine ambition to spend. There was a genuine ambition to want to do well and want to get
Yeah.
Forest back to the best. Because let's be real, I mean, when I was growing up, Forest were, not anywhere near like the Brian Clough days, but they were certainly a well respectable club, and they've always had a good fan
Yeah.
base, a good history and heritage. So they want to be and should be fighting to be as best that they can and win as many games as they can. And the way things are going, you hope it continues as a Forest fan. I just feel like there's genuine the unknown, I suppose, is where fans will be at the moment with this Edu and new consortium stuff around Marinakis. And I think that if he's been highlighted, Edu wants to come and he's jumped ship at Arsenal, which, let's be fair, a club that he respects and loves, then it must
Mm.
be for good reasons, and Edu must be excited for it. So I think it would be more of a good thing than a bad thing.
Yeah, fantastic. So, guys, what do you think now, having listened to what Dan said on Edu? Are you more convinced, less convinced? Get your thoughts in the comments, as always. Dan, thank you so much, buddy. I've taken up loads of your time. It's been fascinating. Guys, please go and subscribe to the 12th Man. The link is in the title. Make sure you've liked this video. Subscribe here if you are new. And we'll see you on the next episode. Come on, you Reds.